Three ways to help early readers transfer foundational knowledge of phonics, segmenting, blending, decoding, encoding. First, you can use high interest photos. For example, here I took images related to a read aloud book we had just read called Cats versus Dogs, a National Geographic Kids book. I put these images up and students generated meaningful vocabulary that matched the images. At first, we talked about what was the same, and they generated words like jump and play, and we used orthographic mapping to read the word that I had written down that they generated. Then we segmented the sounds, we counted the sounds, and then we pointed to and tapped inside these sound boxes and blended the words back together. We did it again with this set of images, and students generated words like cuddle, rest, and sleep. These are all words that are reinforcing vocabulary. They're putting it into a meaningful context and getting us an opportunity to reinforce the foundational skills and the mapping of the way the sound symbol relationship works. It was also really fun and quick. Something else we can do is use interactive writing in a meaningful context, meaning the students and I together worked on generating words and worked on the encoding process as a way to transfer that learning they've been getting. It's different than dictation because they're the ones generating the meaning. Here's an example. It had just snowed in the Northeast where I live and teach. And so I started by modeling how I was labeling different images. For example, sun, we did orthographic mapping and read that word sun, hat, and sled. Then there were some empty labels for students to generate. At first, we just said a bunch of words that could work there. For example, did we want to write shoe or boot or something else? Then we used Elkonin boxes, those sound boxes, to tap out each sound and try to encode that. And then students had whiteboards where they attempted to write it, and then I wrote the word up so that everyone could see it and check their work. We did this a few more times with things like the word snow and hill. It was fun, it was quick, it was engaging, and it helps students transfer back into the context as writers. When they go to do labeling in content area or in any other writing experience, these kindergartners, which is what those students were that I was working with here, have more likelihood that they're going to remember how to transfer and apply what they learned when they go to spell. We had a little fun at the end. And we also tapped into our social learning, the executive skill of a social imagination. And we also added in, what do you think mom would be saying here? Which is a way to make sure students were making meaning, having fun. And again, we did some writing together. A third way is to incorporate shared reading. Now, I know many of you are bringing out controlled text and students are getting opportunities to practice. I also sometimes just make my own really quickly. So here's an example. Again, this is with first graders, where I quickly wrote a book called Snow Fun so we could apply what we had been working on. So you can see the first page of the book says we made snow angels and we worked together to apply all of our learning and transfer it to read this together as a class. It was projected up. We were reading it all together. We had a snowball fight. And then I left a page or two empty for students to then go from a shared experience of reading to an interactive and shared experience of writing, where we then wrote a sentence together. We used the same strategies so that they could see the relationship between reading and writing. It was fun and memorable. So when we connect orthographic mapping to meaningful contexts, we create engagement, high levels of engagement in all the classes that I did these lessons in. We also have emotional experiences, meaning we feel something, whether that's excitement or silliness or fun or connection. And that's a huge way to create memory. It's not just repetition that creates memory, but also an emotional experience. And then third, it supports that transfer. Students often are successful when they are doing whole class work with us, but when we also let them know when, where, and why they would use the learning in these out of context experiences, they're much more likely to use them in the context as readers and writers. Go ahead and try it yourself.